my world blew up. And they told me, like Andy Cohen said, the minute you walk out onto that stage, your life will never be the same again. And he's 100% right. And I think the first like 3 weeks of the show airing, I was probably the most hated person on television.
Maybe I should just sit. What was your husband's reaction to that term, villain?
He probably agreed. No, I'm just kidding. I remember calling up the network and I said, what are you doing with me?
Right.
Like, this is really messed up. I remember certain things like me apologizing to people or certain scenes with my husband and my mom that weren't shown for a reason.
Right.
They want to portray you in this way.
Yeah.
But then everything changed.
So, Jessel, welcome to Preach. I'm really excited. I want to get right into it because your story is very interesting. It's for the whole world to see right now. You are literally the first Indian on the Real Housewives of New York, which is huge. So, I want to start from the beginning. You came from London to New York with like starry dreams in your eyes. And I really want you to talk to me about that. Like, were there fears or was it just excitement? Was there like an idea of what you were going to do, or you just wanted to come see what Jessel is going to like pull out of her hat?
Yeah, I think it was all of the above. So I was really lucky because my mom's brothers, so my two mamas, were here in New York. So I used to come often to visit them and my cousins. When I graduated from school, I wanted so badly to be in the fashion industry. And they were already sort of in that world. And I wanted to just learn. I wanted to learn more. The fashion industry, as you know, is so hard to break into.
Extremely, especially here.
Yeah, especially, I mean, really true. Like even in London, it's very hard. The advantage I had in New York was that I already had kind of a foundation there with my family who had been in the fashion industry for so long.
Right.
So I just wanted to learn as much as I could. So I called up my mama and I said, is it okay if I come and just do a 2-week internship? At the time, they were working for Condé Nast International.
Oh, wow. That's a dream internship right there.
I know. And it's I think a lot of people would have, worked very hard to get it. And I was lucky and very fortunate enough that they said yes, of course. So I came with one suitcase. I came with a little bit of money and I was only supposed to stay 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like I remember being at the airport and I said to my mom, like, I'll see you in a couple of weeks,
Right.
And
you never went back?
I never went back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Before you know it, a year had passed. And I had been interning. You don't get paid, but it was all experience.
Right.
And then finally I got my break at Carla Otto, which is a very, very well-known fashion publicity agency. She's international. She has offices all over the world.
So how long did you do that for?
So I prior to joining Carla, I was interning with different brands in Condé for probably about a year. And then I did a year at Carla as an intern because I didn't know fashion PR.
Right.
I went to New York thinking I wanted to become a fashion editor. So I wanted to be like working for magazines.
Right.
And then as soon as I did that and I experienced it, I realized very quickly it wasn't like my path.
So internships help you do that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like they help you once you're sort of everything looks so amazing and golden and shiny from the outside. But when you're in it, you're like, oh, this is very different, Even fashion PR to some degree was very different than what I thought it would be. I think it was, at the time, Indians that we didn't exist in the fashion world. I think outside of India, which obviously has such a robust fashion industry, in London and in New York and even in Europe, there's like a token Indian, that's kind of well known.
Even today.
Yeah, very much. Like there's a handful of us.
Yeah. I find it really interesting that you worked as a publicist for that long and worked with some of the biggest fashion houses, and then you took all those learnings and you applied it to yourself and you created this fabulous brand that allowed you to launch yourself at the age of 40, an age where most women get ridden off. And you've done it with a family, with kids, and you're a brand to reckon now.
Oh God.
So how did you do that? Because I know that it requires a strategy. It requires commitment, not just from you, from your family also, to support you in this journey of becoming a brand. So my question is, was there a strategy? Did you know that this is where you wanted to take your life? And the second is, what kind of values system do you need to set within your relationship and in your family system to kind of deal with all the stuff that's going to come your way?
Yeah. So the first part of that is, did I see myself in this position? No, like
Yeah.
not at all. I think I just had twins. They're two now, but at the time I started filming, they were like 14 months,
Hmm.
maybe 13 months.
Wow.
So babies, and especially after you have kids, you sort of, in my mind, wanted to really take things down a
Hmm.
notch. I'd been in this like crazy whirlwind of a career. I had been working at the time for Gwyneth Paltrow at Goop,
Oh, wow. Okay.
consulting for her, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And then this opportunity sort of came to me, and I think it's very important, I would say, first of all, to just believe in yourself, because I think, yes, your career path and your experiences and all of that are valuable in that moment, but inherently who you are, like being funny, charming, kind, your
Hmm.
integrity, all of those
Right.
things, I think that is what maybe they saw more than the other stuff, you
But
know?
if not this, then what do you think Jessel would be doing right now?
I would probably very much be doing the same thing. I mean, I was working for so many big brands, and it's hard to get out of that cycle, and it's hard to start your own thing. So I think the show did help me leverage like a platform,
Right.
and I was able to then work, and start my own consultancy and start Ushk, which is
Oh
is
yeah, we're
another
gonna talk
exciting thing.
about that.
Yeah,
We're gonna talk about
I
that.
jumped the gun, but there's, I think it does give you this like amazing lens to look through. And at the end of the day, it was such an honor to be asked, to be on the show and to be the first Indian.
It's interesting that you use the word lens because I have a question. Do you feel like reality shows and television actually help, um, the audience hold up a mirror to you? Like, what were there personal learnings for you when you were shooting this?
Oh my God,
Right.
yes. I think there are so many things. I mean, imagine watching yourself for 14 weeks or 16 weeks. That's like, 4 months of seeing your face on TV
Right.
and then seeing people's reactions to you.
Hmm.
And I think the first like 3 weeks of the show airing, I was probably the most hated person on television.
Okay.
It was
Wow.
not a
Right.
good. I was like, "What is
And
happening
that's
right
surprising because
now?"
when I came to New York, I think Feb of this
Yeah.
year, anybody I would meet, because everybody here was trying to like help me network and get into the right circles. And wherever I'd go, they were like, "Oh, you should meet Jessel," and you should. And I was like, "Yes, I am going to be meeting her for dinner because somebody else set it up for me." But wherever I went, all that I was hearing was Jessel.
Aw.
And then I met with you. And I think there was such an energy of like, what can I do for you versus what can you do for me?
Yeah.
The fact that you were actually able to identify those qualities and hold on to them and kind of allow the world to see that in you as well is what authentic brand building is. But it's interesting to see now that you are seen as a villain. So for that, I have a question. And, I was just doing my reading on Instagram.
God, don't believe
And
everything you hear.
yeah, so no, so I came across this quote by Ellen Pompeo, and she
Mm.
said, "A woman can only be two things in today's world: either a victim or a villain. And a victim is a girl who just is very, very scared of being the villain,
Right.
you know." And
That's interesting.
yeah, and I think I found that was amazing because it is highly uncomfortable to
Mhm.
be a villain, which is what you're saying the world is. For the first
Yeah.
3 weeks, they were calling you that.
Yeah.
But how did you use that as your strength and not kind of see it as a stigma?
So I think that a lot of people don't know how to channel seeing a woman who is strong willed, who runs a household, runs her kids, is building a brand, like, is at the top of her career, and it is doing all those things. And and is doing them in a way that is, kind of like very focused. And I am that way. I'm very strong-willed. I'm very stubborn. I bust my husband around, who doesn't, And I think that that's what people were seeing in the first 3 episodes. And, I'm very opinionated. And
Right.
I think people don't like that.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what essentially that villain, energy came from, or that term, and how I was labeled. And it was really, I remember calling up the network and I said, "What are you doing with me?
Right.
Like, this is really messed up." And they said, "Trust me, we need to set the foundation, set the tone. People are going to hate you, but then your arch is going to go. Like, just trust the process."
Right. But
And
it must
then
have been really, really scary.
my mom called me. She was like, "What is this?" Like,
Yeah.
people are sending her articles. She was like, "What did you do?"
Yeah.
And, it is a show. Things are edited. And I remember certain things like me apologizing to people, or certain scenes with my husband and my mom that weren't shown for a reason, because they
Right.
want to portray you in this
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But then everything changed because I think I clocked on, "Oh crap, like I can't, I have to like stop, you have to
Yeah.
kind of," and I didn't want to be filtered.
Yeah.
But I realized that, when I was going through the filming process, like, okay, I have to actually like kind of be authentic to myself. Like, I shouldn't play up to the cameras and be like over the top,
Yeah.
like character, like just be
And
more
that's
like
hard,
myself.
right?
Yeah.
That's hard because you have a camera and you're supposed to just be yourself.
Yeah.
Like, but how did your husband and your family kind of, you spoke about your mom, but what was your husband's reaction to that term, villain?
He probably agreed. No, I'm just kidding. He,
Yeah.
our dynamic is very interesting. And I think it's very funny because in the mainstream media, I can't think of an Indian couple that are on national television
Oh,
in the
yeah.
way that we are.
Right.
And Indians are, if we're going to talk about culture, I don't sit on his lap and like hug him and kiss him. And, our affection is not like out.
Right.
And that's a very Indian thing. You understand.
Yes, it is.
And even the way we talk to each other, we're friends, we were best friends for like almost, I don't know, 7 years before we started like
Oh,
dating
yeah.
seriously and
That
getting
story
married.
is so interesting. Do you
Yeah.
want to quickly talk about that?
Yeah. I moved to New York, and Pavan and I were actually really good friends. And then we became roommates.
Right.
And I never really looked at him that way. We were so close.
Mhm.
And I think when you're friends with someone, like, do you watch Friends?
Yes, of course.
Monica and
Yeah,
Chandler?
yeah,
Well,
exactly that.
it's
Yeah,
exactly that.
yeah.
You become so comfortable. There's no fluff. We were very real with each other. It's very black and white. And so our marriage is really like, that's the foundation.
And you saw each other dating other people. And
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
I was advising him on,
Right.
dating other girls, and
Right.
it was, and vice versa. And so, yeah, for me, we have a very unfiltered marriage. And I call him out and he calls me out, and we're very like raw and real with each other. Again, another thing that I think people are shocked about, because think about Indian women, they don't call their husbands
By the
out.
name, like they don't even say the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and calling them out is like, so I was living with this really lovely couple and they're Indian, but I was like, you both are so polite to each other. Like, who says like, oh, I'm so sorry, like, can you repeat yourself, or would you like me to do that, oh, thank you so much. And I'm
My
like, you come
God.
to India, you just be like,
Yeah.
why haven't you done it? What's wrong with you? And that is a love language,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Because
really funny.
so you feel like you had to bring a lot of like cultural context to explaining how
Yes.
people were seeing you. And
I mean, episode 1, people were literally saying, this is the next couple to get a divorce. And I mean, it's funny because we're not.
yeah,
But it was funny to see people's reactions to our dynamic. And Pavitt, I mean, he was like, I told you, you speak like that to me, and people are gonna, he's really like, he's very sensitive. Yeah. But I think his time, I mean, we're like week 10 now of the show.
Mhm.
We're America's sweethearts.
Oh.
Because people do realize, like, we're not putting it on, like, we're not doing it for the show.
yeah,
That's really who we are.
yeah,
I was just doing something with CNN the other day, and he had his AirPods on and it was like this weird echo. And I was like, Pavin, I can hear this echo in the background. What is wrong with you? And the editor just started laughing. She was like,
Yeah.
you are exactly how you are on TV.
Yeah, but that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. And I mean, it makes the process easier. Imagine being somebody else on camera and then, like, having to put that
Yeah.
on.
I think
That
people
would be
can
an
see
effort.
through it,
Yeah.
And the whole point of reality TV is reality TV.
Yes.
Like, who wants to see, like, this very curated, like, very massaged?
So it's very real. You're saying the show is very real.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do. I think everyone on the show is and we're like, I mean, we're virgins in this whole experience. So we didn't
Yeah.
even know what the heck's going on half the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So
So how has life changed now? Because I know that you are planning on bringing Indian fashion to New York, and you are using this platform to create a platform for Indian designers. And the way the world is now talking about our craftsmanship, I think that this is such a sweet time to do what you're doing. So tell me about that idea.
and you're going to be obviously on board, hopefully.
I'm excited.
Watch his face. Yeah, I mean, I think this idea has lived in my head for so long.
Mhm.
I've always loved Indian fashion. I think it comes from my mom. And obviously, I didn't grow up in India. So for us, how we see Indian fashion is completely different to how
Completely
you
different.
do. But
But luckily, what I've seen on you is how we are dressing in
yeah,
India. Yeah.
what is the missing piece of the puzzle for me is the fashion component, because when you look to India, and a lot of people have eyeballs on India right now, especially like even what you're doing in creating this very unique
Mhm.
point of view when it comes to Indian fashion, like cool, modern. You don't have to look like a cupcake and to be in Indian clothes,
Yeah.
or to be like wearing Indian designers.
Mhm.
I think there is so much talent that is untapped, that I'm seeing coming out of India and even the Middle East. And what's hard for me to understand is how these designers, how are they able to come to the US? There's really no support.
Yeah, it's like shooting in the dark.
Shooting in the dark. There's
This is my third trip here, and I'm
which is
still trying to figure it out.
crazy.
Yeah.
And I just, being a publicist and being in fashion PR, I know how to create brands. And I also want to help guide the process. So, like, I understand what the US customer resonates towards, or what, in my eyes, like, from your collection, like people might be gravitating to. And so it's a guidance, but also giving you a marketplace and a platform to talk about you as a designer, like really create a beautiful editorial sort of like fusion of a retail marketplace, but also like educate people on
Right.
who you are. And I think that's really what's missing. There isn't anything which is so shocking like it.
Yeah.
And by the way, if I wanted to buy Indian clothes, what the heck? Where?
Yeah.
What?
How do you do it?
How do you do it?
Yeah.
And it's so confusing. It's like a puzzle.
And it's also scary because, okay, even if I order it online all the way from India, I don't know if it'll reach me. I don't know if
Yeah.
it'll be my size. So I think you're
The
going to be
boob is
that
here or the
person.
boob is
Yeah.
here. So I've ordered things and literally like both of the boob cups are like here.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wait, this is
That's
weird.
not where my boobs live. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not on my chin.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I think that I'm here to work through operations, logistics, the process, and sort of handhold the talent coming out of India.
Yeah.
And really, I'm so excited for what the opportunity is.
Yeah. And you've put together a really solid team of women
I
on your
have.
board. I think that approach is it gives a designer so much more confidence to
Yeah.
work with you. So how do you? I'm going to come back to the brand question because I think that's so relevant to people who are watching. Learning how to brand yourself, because sure, you're good at something, like I can be a great designer, but how do I create a brand out of that? How do I create a brand out of myself?
Right.
And I think you've managed to do that really well. So what advice would you give to young creatives or just creatives in general who are kind of struggling with how do I put my authentic self out there?
I mean, I think the key is really like having a strong point of view and a point of view that differentiates you from the crowd.
Right.
And I know that's not easy, but being different is a positive thing. It's a
Right.
good thing. Being unique is what I think people gravitate towards nowadays. And so, it's being true to yourself. It's having that point of view. It's really trusting your gut in the process and never taking no for an answer.
Mhm.
And I think people who have that are extremely successful because um, the more confidence you have in yourself, the more confidence other people will
Right.
have in you.
And I think also like looking at you, building a really strong network of strong folks like who can kind of mirror you. Because when I asked you when you're going to launch it, you said first I'm putting this board together. I have, so how you did it was just so intelligently like thought out
Yeah.
to create a very like solid backbone. And I've learned that too, like when I build my team, that the smarter people, the stronger people that I bring on board, the smarter and sharper I look, and I can function.
Yeah, you're only as good as your
Yeah.
team and like your circle. And I mean, kudos to you for, doing what you've done because again, it's inherently like I can walk into a room, be it at a wedding or a party or whatever, and I know that who's wearing your brand. I
Oh,
know who's wearing Papa Don't Preach.
thank
And
you.
it's because you've created this signature look and feel and very like crystal clear point of view.
Mhm.
And I think that's the key. Like if you look at any designer, even if it's someone like a Celine, which is like really there's no branding, it's just the cut and the fabric and the
Right.
colors, but it's that.
Yeah.
It's that is probably the most interesting part of creating a brand, I think.
I want to know personally, and I'm sure the audience also wants to know, when is it launching? And how soon are we going to start ordering? Going to get to order from your
Oof.
baby?
So ideally, it's going to be fall of this year.
Okay.
I'm still in web development, but we're working really hard to get it up and
Diwali.
running. Ideally, that is my goal.
Yeah, and it has a beautiful name. It's
Does.
yeah.
It's funny because I think I like literally was up until like 4 5 a.m. like daily on like looking at names. It's very hard
Very hard.
because
Yeah.
it's essentially like
And it's such a
everything.
big part of like your brand identity and
Yeah.
brand building. Yeah.
It has to make sense. And I just knew I wanted something that can transcend Middle East, that can transcend the Western, like, countries that really make sense in India. And so it's a name that doesn't really, it means eternal, but it's Ushk.
Oosh.
Yeah.
It's like a sound. It's
Ushk.
like a
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, and it's funny because that ooh is, I worked with a brand, someone who is a very big deal in branding, and they were like, Google, goop. Like it's a
Ooh.
very like a term, like a sound that's resonates a lot with
Right.
people.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
It's like I like it.
Say it again.
Oosh.
Oosh.
Sexy.
Right?
Right? It's like
yeah, it
not-
is. It instantly gives you a feeling and a visual. And
Yes.
like for me, it was a sound and like exactly what you said. It's
feeling.
like a ooh.
Yeah, oosh.
Ooh. So tell me, how has your life changed after this show? And what next? Are you going to do more television? Or I get the brand and the business part of
Yeah.
it, but what about you? Where do you see yourself
I
going
mean,
next?
people definitely recognize me grocery shopping. like, they're like, oh my God, you're on that show. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it's me. I think we're just starting.
Mhm.
I think that the show, the reboot, this is a show that's run in the US for almost 13 years.
Mhm.
So we're actually season 14, but it's a brand new cast.
Right.
And I think that with this brand new cast, they wanted to show diversity, cultural, like, a cultural multiverse of just like personalities and it's really working. I think you learn about these women.
Yeah.
You certainly get a very intimate, like, look into our lives.
Did you come out with any best friends from the show?
I did, yeah.
Oh,
Uba
that's nice.
is Somali and Muslim. She's a model.
Okay.
She's someone that is like, my jaw was on the floor when I'm around her, she's just
Oh,
beautiful.
wow.
Yeah, we should
Okay.
actually dress her.
Yeah, we
She would wear
should.
your clothes so well.
We should.
She's
Okay.
amazing. So really it's like, yes, I think I would continue down the television rabbit hole. And obviously a lot of my focus is just on building this platform and really helping designers. I think giving them a voice in this crazy, crazy
Yeah.
marketplace that we live in. So
What is your relationship with age? How does that dictate your life or does it not?
age,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, it's an interesting question because you're right. I think women at 40 or 38 even,
Mm-hmm.
you're sort of comfortable, right? Like you're probably married, you probably have kids, you're probably like settled in your career. For me, I was never satisfied. So I'm always looking for what's next. And
Right.
I think that is what makes life interesting. Not to be complacent and always have a goal of, where you see yourself like the next year. Like, what are those goals? Like, what do you look like? What does your life look like? My husband gets so mad at me. He's like, can you just chill for 1 second? Like,
Do you feel like that has to do with your upbringing, like being Indian or being multicultural or having lived in so many cities? Do you feel like you look at ambition differently from probably somebody who's grown up here?
yeah. And I think a lot of Indians can actually relate to that because one thing that I know my parents instilled in me is like hard work.
Hmm.
And if you work hard and you have a strong work ethic, you will never, ever be satisfied. You will always want more. And I think, we as Indians and as a culture, we only know how to work hard.
Yeah. When a lot of young people come to me now and they're like, you're so lucky, you know what you want to do. Like, I want to do something on my own, but I don't know what it is. And I say I go back to my childhood where my parents kind of gave me the gift of boredom. They let me get bored. And when I was getting bored, I had to entertain myself. And
Mhm.
that's when I found myself sewing and like cutting up like Barbie's clothes and doing things like that.
Mhm.
So even though I went and I studied journalism, I went back to fashion because that's what I was like inherently drawn towards. What were you doing when you were, say, 5, 6, 7?
Oh my God, that's a good question. I dreamt a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was very much a dreamer. I
Yeah.
would like live in my own world.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I was looking at pictures of me growing up the other day, and I'm never looking at the camera. I'm always just like off to like a distant like
Yeah,
world.
very busy. You have important things to do. Like, who has time to look at the
Busy.
camera?
I know. I'm always like, it's so funny. And like that's at such a young age. I
Yeah.
wasn't quite like with it.
Yeah.
Um, but what was I doing? I think for me, um, I always had this very like larger than life look at the world.
Hmm.
Um, I grew up listening to Michael Jackson. I'm sure everyone did.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, he was a child prodigy. And what he did with his life, I mean, rest in peace. Like he didn't obviously end in a good way, but like I think what he did as a child was so inspirational to me. And I always just wanted to be like, have that superstar power.
Wow. And you did that. So I'm going to move to the fun part of this.
Yes.
Okay. Reality TV or scripted television?
Ooh, unscripted.
A publicity stunt you can't get over.
Oh my God. Wait, this is hold on. Oh, the hologram at Coachella
Oh, wow.
for was it Tupac?
I'm not sure.
Oh, it was they basically brought Tupac back to life. It
Oh,
was kind of
wow.
amazing. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds cool. Okay. Most memorable fashion event. I think it would be.
Most memorable fashion event. Dior was kind of amazing in India.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
that
that
runway
was.
show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay. Beach vacation or mountain escape?
Beach for sure.
Public speaking or behind the scenes strategy?
Ooh, behind the scenes strategy.
Really?
Well, now that might change, but that's what
Okay.
I grew up with.
Favorite fashion accessory, handbag or shoes?
Ooh, handbag.
A fictional character you relate to the most?
Fictional character I relate to the most. Good Lord. I want to say Little Mermaid. She like swims.
Yeah,
to, like,
I get that. I
like,
get
yeah.
that. Okay, so now this is me judging you on how American you are. High heels or sneakers?
Oh, high heels.
Oh, so you're not
Fashion girl.
American. Yeah. So
No.
you're European.
Yes, hell yeah, I am.
Okay, summer or winter fashion?
Summer.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Favorite way to unwind?
Oh,
Watch yourself on television?
yeah, Instagram maybe.
Instagram. Okay. Vintage fashion or latest trends?
Latest trends.
Favorite PR challenge? Crisis management or product launch?
Oh, product launch.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. New York or London fashion scene?
London right now. Yeah.
Right now or always?
Kind of always.
Kind of always,
Yeah.
always.
I know. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think people watching in New York is like very interesting too.
Yeah.
But London definitely has that like
Oh yeah.
European.
I'm so glad I studied there.
so
It's
good.
so different
Yeah.
from like how it would be if I studied here.
Agreed.
Okay. Celebrity client you admire the most?
Well, hopefully you.
Aw.
I'm not blowing steam. Hopefully you.
Okay. Fashion show, fashion front row or backstage chaos?
Oh, front row all day.
Oh, in your heels.
In my heels.
Most exciting career moment? Living it
I think
or
in
yet
that.
to come?
Oh, it could be still TBD, but I would have to say that when I was announced on the show, my world blew up.
Oh wow.
And they told me, like Andy Cohen said, the minute you walk out onto that stage, your life will never be the same again. And he's 100% right.
Okay, that's a good note to end on. Thank you. You were super good at
Thank
this.
you. I've done so many press interviews.
You were so good at this. Nice.